Okay. If you can hear me, please say yes or something in the chat because I cannot see anybody. Perfect. Perfect. Well, hey everyone. My name is Bruce Allen. I am the Impact and Innovation Fellow at Rockridge Venture Law, and I've had the pleasure of putting excited. So on behalf of Rockridge and on behalf of B Tennessee, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us on this Thursday afternoon. Can everybody hear me as well? Okay, perfect. Well, I'll explain. Thanks, Jonathan. I'll explain a little bit about B Tennessee and then I'll get us kicked off. So B Tennessee is an initiative launched last year by Tennessee B Corp companies whose mission is to further corporate social responsibility efforts in the state. While B Tennessee is comprised of B Corp companies, we don't want to limit our engagement or events to B Corps. In fact, that's why we've invited you all here today, to showcase the diversity of industries and regions within our great state of Tennessee, where business is being used as a force for good. Well, given the state of our country, I think it's a timely moment for a panel like this. And it's a conversation that's long overdue. And I hope that it sets the stage for many more conversations in the future about how the private sector can enable positive change and push forward things like social equality, environmental sustainability, and responsible corporate governance. Eventually, we're going to reach a point when CSR is no longer a distinguishing element of a business. B Corp certification or not, it's going to be the default way of business operations. But we're not there yet, and it's up to us to keep pushing forward. So I hope you enjoyed the virtual networking session, and I hope you enjoy this panel of fabulous speakers who are working to advance CSR initiatives in our region. I'd also like to give a shout out to Lunchpool for hosting and sponsoring this event. Honestly, I wish that the virtual networking session had lasted a little longer. I've been in way more virtual conferences lately than I would like, and Lunchpool has consistently been my favorite. So now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Miss Emily Landry. Emily is completing her PhD at the University of Tennessee with a dissertation focused on social entrepreneurship in the B Corp movement. She has been a graduate research assistant for the past 5 years with UT's Green Economy Initiative, where she gained an appreciation for the role of public-private partnerships in addressing sustainability challenges in the Southeast. She also teaches classes at UT on research methods in entrepreneurship, and she is on the founding board of the B Academics Nonprofit Association. I've asked Emily to facilitate this panel today and keep us moving through a packed agenda of amazing speakers. And now I'll hand the floor over to her. Thanks, Emily.
Thanks, Bruce. And thank you, Kevin. And let me say that this is really a highlight of my week, getting me out of my dissertation dungeon for a few hours. I've really been looking forward to this. When Kevin contacted me to facilitate this event, I was really glad to see something like this was in the works, and with well over 100, I think we hit 150 at least registrations this morning on pretty short notice. It really is a testament to the momentum that's gathering around the business community to address sustainability challenges in the Southeast. So thank you to all the participants for taking time to join this panel. And thank you so much to our panelists for putting their expertise and experiences forward, so that we can all learn and build on the collaboration and the interest that's already here in our region. We have a great lineup of 4 speakers for you today with a lot of breadth and depth of experience. And we're going to give each speaker the floor one at a time for about 10 minutes uninterrupted. And then we'll have about 3 to 5 minutes after each speaker for a question or two. We pulled some of these out ahead of time from the pool of questions that we got from the registration submissions. And so as we go along, if there are additional questions that come to mind, you can feel free to put them in the chat. And we'll add them to the larger pool of questions, but we can't guarantee that we'll be able to bring them to the floor in real time today. So I am very pleased to introduce our first panelist, Jonathan Ingram. Do we have him yet on the with speaker privileges? There he is. Great. Hi, Jonathan. So Jonathan has spent the last 12 years as an experiential educator in high schools, colleges, and in the professional sphere. He's currently the executive director of the Chattanooga Fellows Program, which is a 9-month fellowship that equips recent college grads to faithfully find their vocation, commit to their community, and practice civic responsibility. Jonathan joins us to explore the role that the faith community can play in addressing and influencing corporate social responsibility. So welcome to the panel, Jonathan. I'm going to begin a timer now for about 10 minutes. And at the 9-minute mark, I'm going to give you a 1-minute wrap-up warning so that we can move into the Q&A portion of your talk.
Thank you so much, Emily. I really appreciate the introduction. Be Tennessee, thank you so much for inviting me to be a speaker today and to talk about the faith community as it relates to the CSR model and movement. I'm just impressed that we're on the radar of something to talk through. I am the executive director of Chattanooga Faith Work Culture, and we are an organization in Chattanooga helping people think through how their Christian faith, that's where we come from, and the gospel in particular speaks into what they do in their life on a regular basis. Can't believe I get to be on a panel with all these amazing organizations and the people representing them and the work that they're doing. Our mission statement at Chattanooga Faith Work Culture is to equip women and men of all ages and vocational backgrounds to see the gospel permeating every aspect of life, to live it out in their culture, and to see flourishing happening in their societies through their everyday work. You know, we live in the Southeast, and we are also often known as the Bible Belt. And Chattanooga, if it is a belt, we're probably the belt buckle. We were voted the last few years the most Bible-minded city in the country, and that doesn't mean we have lots and lots of pastors. It means we have people that represent and identify as Christians that are attending churches and are part of communities of faith here in our city. But often we don't talk a whole lot about what that means in light of the work they do. Most people are going to work for around 40 years of their life, 40 to 50 hours a week. That's about 80,000 to 90,000 hours of their life, or about 10 years of their life that they'll be spent in jobs and corporations and work. And we want to speak into those moments. We do that by offering different fellowships and educational opportunities for Christians in our city to engage with around this topic, from college age to established professionals to even pastors, about how to engage this topic. It's fun to think about talking about what it looks like for us to enter this conversation around corporate social responsibility and where do people of faith fit into that conversation. I've been so impressed with this movement and this model of doing business that goes against a lot of our stereotypes of what it means to be in a corporation or to be corporate, where the bottom line is one bottom line of just making profits and making money has been pushing things. That's what we're seen as, but what's going on in the CSR movement and model is that there's more to the bottom line than just profit. And that's such a cool thing. And it's going against the stream of things. And as Bruce was saying, it's so neat to see momentum pick up and grow. But whenever you're going against stream, there's always got to be some underlying things that hold you to that. So what are the values that hold you to that idea? You know, I would assume that for a lot of folks, you know, a big model, a big thing that's holding in value, that's holding them is care for those that work for them, for the employees and their experience and in their health, not just that they get the job done, but that they do it well and are flourishing in their work. I'm sure another value is the sustainability piece of the world we see. We want to be part of change, of improving the climate, improving our environment, and that being a driving factor that we see businesses playing in. And then thirdly, I think for companies that go along this route, they really see business as something that should be making a positive change in their society. And these underlying values drive and keep people on track to move against culture, to change culture. And that's so neat to see. And what I've seen is when you have that, you know, you get to a place where the playbook stops and you have to begin to imagine, what does it mean in my context to do that? And it's been so neat to read up on some of the companies that are going to be presenting today and the models and the philosophies that they've embedded into their culture and done it with real intentionality. And I say all that just to say, I think in Christian circles, a lot of times Christianity gets truncated down to something that's just about the soul and just about the spirit. It's about Jesus saving souls, and we're waiting kind of to go to heaven one day. But we want to say that it's more of a holistic view of faith, just like, and you guys are looking at a holistic view of business. That the broader vision of what Jesus did was to restore and to bring renewal to all of creation, to our bodies, to our lives, to the creation around us, but also to the institutions that we're a part of, to the corporations, and to the work that we do with our hands. And just like the CSR movement, there's got to be things that are underlying values in what we do that drive us to keep us moving in that direction. And my underlying values for why we do what we do from our faith perspective is the Bible. And the first biblical value that drives what we do is this idea that no matter what you believe or where you're from or what your background is, that you are created in the image of God, that that is not something you have to earn, but it's something that you have, and that every human being is worthy of dignity and respect. That's a biblical thing that we hold on to as we think about engaging work and culture. The second one is that all humans from the beginning were designed to steward creation. That's one of the first things that we see about what a human's role is in the world. And so as we think about the businesses we're a part of, we think about the things we want to do, we want to be people that are serving and caring for the creation around us and protecting and preserving it. And so it's a biblical value that drives what it means to engage the world around us. And the third is that biblical thing that I'm pulling out is that the work of our hands really does matter, and it plays a part in the flourishing of the communities and the cities that we're a part of. And just like in business, at some point, the Bible gives you these principles and these values, but there's not a playbook for the context that you find yourselves. And it calls for an imagination to imagine how to see renewal, how to see change, how to see sustainability show up in the context that you find yourself. 10 minutes feels very short to try to summon all this theology and all this stuff that drives what we do in our organization and how we want to partner with businesses. So I'll get straight into a few stories where we've seen people of faith walk into situations in their companies or starting things to bring renewal to those places. The first story I want to tell is about two men who were part of one of our fellowships a couple years ago. Their names were Hicks Armour and Cy Huffman. And Hicks and Cy have been in the professional world for a long time. Hicks is an insurance broker, and he works mainly with doctors around the Southeast. Cy was a doctor himself for a long time, but now works in the corporate offices of Blue Cross Blue Shield Tennessee, which are based here in Chattanooga. As they got to know each other and were learning and trying to think what it meant as a person of faith to enter and bring renewal to the places that they were called to work, they started coming up with some ideas of ways that they could work together. Hicks and his wife have a son who is now an adult that has IDD, intellectual disability, and they're trying to make sure they're advocating for him to get the medical care he needs. And what they were finding was doctors were not prepared for caring for and advocating for people who were people in that state. And Cy really related with that as a former doctor, realizing his own inadequacies as a doctor. And so they said, what can we do in light of our influence to kind of move this conversation along? Hicks was working his angle with doctors, and Cy was working at his angles in the corporate offices of Blue Cross Blue Shield. They ended up partnering with different advocacy groups, including the Vanderbilt Reagan Center, to where they now, long story short, to get where now, 2 years later, they're offering tele-training for doctors all over the state of Tennessee around how to care for adults with IDD. This was something that was not happening, and their faith, values, and principles pushed them into not into a faith position or a ministry position, but using that in the corporate context that they found themselves. Where now over 23,000 people with IDD here in the state of Tennessee are going to have better care by the doctors that are able to get that training. It's a way for two individuals in their faith to use the corporate offices and jobs that they had to make this happen. The second story that I want to share is about a church, a place of worship that tried to walk into the business space to care for the city. And this is a church here in Chattanooga, the Mission Chattanooga. It's an Anglican congregation that meets right downtown in the city. And they have a space in the building that they use on Sundays for worship, but they decided they wanted to use it throughout the week for other things and trying to figure out what to do. And they ended up deciding to start a business, a coffee shop they called the Camp House. And over the last few years, the Camp House has become a hub for different people to meet around town, kind of a third meeting spot in the city. You can walk in the Camp House on any day and see a senator talking with constituents. You can see the executive director of United Way meeting with people in the city. You can see a homeless person having coffee. You can see business plans being drawn out on the table. And it's become this place to draw people together to create a space for flourishing for the city of Chattanooga. On top of that, they said, we don't want to stop there. We want to think about our hiring practices and how we're going to help the city in areas that need help. And what they decided to do was intentionally look to hire folks that were coming out of situations that were difficult or harder parts of town where their options were limited, and to provide them a chance to build some skills, to network with the people that came in the office, and build out. Thank you so much, and to build out a larger kind of touch point in the city about making change. I could give about 10 more examples here in Chattanooga. I could go for all day about examples around the country of people of faith trying to imagine what it means for them to walk into the business world and not going just thinking about souls, but thinking about actual bodies, about places, and about the creation around us and how we can be a part of bringing sustainability and bringing change for those areas. I'll stop there, though.
Thank you, Jonathan. That was great. Right on time. Okay, so we have from the registration. So this says, what are some small concrete ways that houses of worship can encourage corporate social responsibility? And we kind of went into this in your example, but maybe you have time to give one more example of something like that.
Yeah, so that's a big one where church really invested a lot of time into starting a business, and a lot of times that doesn't happen. You know, that's not a thing a place of worship can do. You know, a couple just quick examples of things that people have done in other places is to promote this is one, they have to teach it. They have to let their congregation know that what they do 9 to 5 is important to their faith. Along those lines, providing opportunities for people to live into that. So one example is churches that have created co-working spaces in their buildings throughout the week for companies that are starting out for low rent or no rent at all, to begin companies that are going to be looking for the common good of society and giving them space to do that. Another one is really simple and silly, kind of might sound, but even where churches, a big thing at churches is getting coffee, and a lot of churches are known for really bad coffee. But what would it look like to make a statement with the type of coffee you get? And so a church here in Chattanooga went out of their way to use locally sourced coffee for their congregation. That was just another small way to say this is a really important thing that we're willing to invest a little bit more money into.
Well, thank you. All right, we are right on time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And next we have Ryan Bailey. Okay. So I'll go ahead and do an introduction. Well, there he is. Hi, Ryan. Great. Your audio is off, I think. So Ryan Bailey is the Vice President of Finance and Operations at the Bailey Company, which is one of the nation's largest forklift truck dealerships. And you didn't see Ryan in the promotional material for this event because he originally wasn't on the agenda, but he's graciously agreed to step in for one of our other panelists who had to cancel a few days ago. So we're very glad that he's with us here today, and we give a warm welcome to Ryan and the Bailey Company. Under Ryan's leadership, the Bailey Company has invested heavily in renewable energy and renewable energy efficient technologies. And in 2020, the Bailey Company became the first true certified zero waste company in Tennessee. Additionally, Ryan owns Cumberland Kayak, a Nashville kayak outfitter that donates a percentage of sales to local nonprofits and hosts frequent river cleanups. He also serves on the board of 10 Greenland Conservancy. So welcome to the panel, Ryan. I will begin a timer now for 10 minutes, and at about the 9-minute mark, I'll give you a 1-minute wrap-up warning so we can move into the question and answer portion. And I think your audio is still off.
Technical difficulties. This is the beauty of live events. So Ryan, if you want to check up at the top left, there's the 3 bars. And thanks guys for bearing with us. There's the 3 bars. Do you see that? Click that button and see if on your microphone, make sure it's on the right setting, and you might have to refresh your screen as well. And if we can't get it working, then we can troubleshoot and we can kind of mix the order up of the speakers, and we'll get you going. Maybe we'll do that. We'll if it's okay with you guys, we'll move on to Farrell, and then Ryan, I'll get with you and we'll get you fixed up there. So sorry about the technical issues, guys. But Farrell, whenever you're ready, press cam on, mic on, and Ryan, you can just go cam off, and I'll pull you into another space and we can troubleshoot.
Okay, so we'll move on to Farrell. Okay, Farrell, are you coming on? This is Farrell Calabrese, who's joining us as the Strategic Initiatives Manager for Global Sustainability at Eastman Chemical Company. Eastman is located in northern Tennessee in the city of Kingsport. Farrell's diverse experience in leadership, design, and sustainability has challenged Eastman to think differently. Her work with multinational brands, sustainability leaders, and design thinkers across industries has helped enable transformational shifts for a more sustainable future. She wants to build a more inclusive future that allows us to all thrive socially, ecologically, and economically. And we're very happy to have her here today. So welcome, Farrell. She's able to join us on camera. We'll wait a minute.
Looks like she's also having issues. She's on the phone, Farrell. If you're on an Android phone, make sure that you're using Chrome browser. If you're on an iPhone, make sure you're using Safari. You may have to pinch on the iPhone, depending on which model you have, and then that should show you the cam on, mic on buttons. You kind of pinch and scroll up. Startup technology. It's a beta version on. Let's see if we can get her going too.
Well, we're getting all of our intros out of the way. So once everyone's here, we'll just fly through all the great content they have for us.
Definitely. And we were thrilled when Bruce reached out to us and asked last week if we would host this. We're also a little terrified because we usually have about 5 weeks of lead time. So appreciate you guys working with us. And then if we can't get her going, let's move on to Vincent. I apologize. We'll just kind of shift the order around again. So
okay, we can do that. Is Vincent able? Maybe Vincent can join us, and we
Vincent,
can
press cam on, mic on, if you will. There we go.
Wonderful. Okay. Hi,
there
Vincent.
we go. Hi.
Awesome.
Great. So can I introduce you? Can you go next with that? All right. So welcome, Vincent Stanley of Patagonia. Vincent is the co-author of the book, The Responsible Company, and he's been with Patagonia on and off since the company began in 1973. He's had many years in key executive roles in areas of sales and marketing. He's also known informally as Patagonia's longtime chief storyteller and the godfather of CSR. Now he's currently serving as Patagonia's director of philosophy, and he's also a visiting fellow at the Yale School of Management. So welcome, Vincent. I'm going to start my timer now for 10 minutes, and at about the 9-minute mark, I'll give you a 1-minute warning and we'll move into the Q&A.
All right. Thanks for having me. When Patagonia was approached in 2007 by the founders of B Lab, they hadn't gotten too many people to sign up, and they came to us and said, we'd really like you to become a B Corp. And we turned them down. And at the time we thought, oh my gosh, we're doing a lot. We have our labor practices audited. We vet all the chemicals used in our clothing. Why would we submit? We're having a little bit of audit fatigue. Why would we put ourselves through one more set of requirements? And what changed our minds was early in the 2010s, The same people who started B Lab started a movement to create a special legal status called the Benefit Corporation. And we got interested in that because we're a privately held company owned by one family. And one of the thoughts the owners had was, when we pass the company on to our kids, and at some point they want to sell, how do we make sure that the values that we've worked for the past 30 years get enshrined in some ways into the business? So we were very interested in this, and we decided to become a benefit corporation, and we also decided to become a B Corp. We were the first registered benefit corporation in the state of California on January 1st, 2012. But we learned that the benefit of becoming a B Corp was a lot stronger than just being a part of being a benefit corporation. The B Impact Assessment is actually the only look we have, the only holistic look we have at all our practices on how we affect all our stakeholders, from employees to customers, to the communities we operate in, to nature itself. Everything else we look at tends to concentrate on one aspect of the business, on what the chemicals are in our textiles, what the labor practices are. But the BIA gives us a look at the company as a whole. And it's been progressive. So we've gone through our fourth assessment. And what happened to us is we learned from each assessment where we fell short and where we could make improvements. And it created a kind of internal competition to create improvements to get our score up. And even though we know the score, the number is not as important as the work that actually goes into thinking about things as a whole, nevertheless, people focus on numbers pretty quickly, and it gives them the impetus to make changes. It also creates there's a funny kind of virtual competition with other B Corps. We are, I think, 151.5 or something like that on a scale of 200, considered pretty good in the B Corp community. But Dr. Bronner's, the soap company, has a score of 175, and we look at that and we say, what are they doing right that we're not doing? How do we get our score up to theirs? I was very interested to hear Jonathan's comments because I think one thing that the B Corp movement does is to bring together all business people who base their businesses primarily on values, or view their values at the heart of their work. It's interesting to me that in nearly every state that has adopted benefit corporations, there have been Democratic and Republican co-sponsors. That what we're looking at in terms of values are some of the most universal values that human beings hold. I mean, I think Jonathan spoke of dignity and respect as something that is inherent in every individual, and in every human activity. That respect for dignity really has to come into play. One of the things that interests me about values that are shared, that transcend in some ways politics or transcend religious associations, is to go very deep into the question of where the shared values are. There's a wonderful woman named Monica Sharma who worked for 18 years at the UN. And she tells a story about working with people in Egypt, and they persuaded the Imam of Cairo to declare a fatwa on female genital mutilation. And they were able to persuade him to declare that this moray that was deeply ingrained in the culture was a violation of more deeply held values. and that therefore he should declare a fatwa and he should persuade his community to move away from this practice. And I think when we talk about the challenges that we face right now as human beings, faced with what Pope Francis called one single crisis with two faces, and that is the social crisis on the one hand, of lack of equality, the indignity, and on the other hand, the environmental crisis, which is manifesting itself more regularly every year. And in order to deal with these challenges that are going to face us and mostly our children and grandchildren for the next 10, 15, 20, or 30 years, it's really important that business, as the third leg of the kind of social stool, along with NGOs like churches, along with government, actively pursue solutions to the big problems we face. And I think that the B Corp movement gives us a framework for locating what the universal values are, for acting on them, and for making improvements as we go along. Now, the other thing I think that's really important is that the B Corp movement, although it's an international movement now, really spreads at the local basis. And I've seen this happen in communities like Grand Rapids, where again, the business movement is actually led primarily by faith-based businesses. I've seen it in Phoenix. I've seen it in Bellingham, Washington. I've seen it in Parma, Italy, where one company became a B Corp, a shampoo and skincare company that then influenced the largest company and the largest pharmaceutical company in Italy to become a B Corp, which influenced the largest pasta maker in the world, Barilla, to start to investigate becoming a B Corp. So that is the other value of this, that it is not, that it is, comes from the ground up, that it is being built in communities all over the world, including in Tennessee. So I think with that, I'd just like to open up for questions, and both from the moderator and from you folks.
Great, thank you, Vincent. And we do have a few questions here for you. So this one, how can startups with limited revenue and profits and therefore less ability to give impact still make a meaningful difference and communicate that to stakeholders?
Well, I think it's actually better to start to lead with your values when the business begins. I mean, Patagonia didn't do that. We didn't have any sense in 1973 when we started of the possibility of these kinds of responsibilities that we later assumed. And I think it's tough if you start with a business and you build it, and then all of a sudden you say, oh, you know, we've decided we're going to be good guys, and we're going to start doing this, this, and this. And you start talking about costs that perhaps your investors hadn't anticipated, or you talk about activities that your employees had no idea you were interested in. And it's much better if you understand these values, you have them written down, you pursue them from the beginning, whether you're small or whether you're big. Everybody understands that's at the core of your company. There's another organization that we helped start called 1% for the Planet, which is made up of organizations that give 1% of sales to environmental causes. Well, you know, if you're a $100,000 business, you can give 1% of that to, and if you're a $1 billion business, you can give 1% of that. But if you do it from the very, very beginning, that 1% never hurts you, because everybody who is a stakeholder in your business understands that that's what you're about and that's what you're committed to doing.
Great, thank you. We have a question from Christopher, Kevin Christopher, I'm sorry. He asked, what is an example of a market opportunity that you passed up because of your corporate values and or the BIA, the B impact assessment?
That's an interesting question. I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think that one thing that when you do any successful business and any successful organization is going to have to deal with an issue called mission creep, in which you start to look for opportunities that are outside your core values and maybe outside your core expertise. And I think understanding what those values are helps hold you to that and avoiding mission creep. So I think that there are plenty of examples from our early days that I can tell you of things we did that we never should have gotten into. But I can't think of anything where we were actually considering a business opportunity and then held back and said, no, this isn't right for us. We have done things like, for instance, we were sportswear was about a third of our business, and from the 1980s and early 1990s, we decided to switch to organic cotton, risking, we knew that if we were not able to succeed in making that switch, which was very difficult at the time, that we would lose about a third of our business. But I can't think of an example positively where we said, no, we're not going to do that. Because I think that having those values keeps you from pursuing those opportunities in the first place.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, we'll ask one more question for you. Let's see. So how do you suggest that how do you motivate businesses to embrace CSR as part of the core business rather than a public relations add-on?
I think that has to come from within the company. And that can come in a couple of directions. One is that people within the company get enthusiastic and start to do some small things that then become models for other people in the company. It really helps when you have the support of the owner or the corporate company. It's an interesting case with Danone, which big French yogurt company, and their Danone USA is the largest B Corp in the world, with $6 billion a year. And when they started down the process of becoming a B Corp, they thought it would take 3 years, but they did it in 1 year. And the woman who spearheaded, Lorna Davis, who spearheaded the effort, said she thought it was the commitment of the younger employees, that they felt so strongly that they should do this, that they helped bring the company around in that time. So I don't think you can persuade people from the outside except negatively. I mean, if you're, I think and I can give you 9 business arguments for becoming a B Corp, from reputational risk to driving innovation to engaging younger employees, et cetera, et cetera. I still think that people become B Corps on the basis of values and not on the basis of business motivation.
Okay. Thank you very much. I wish there's so many other questions that I wish we could bring to the floor right now, but we're in the interest of time. We're just going to keep moving. But thank you so much for your insight.
Well, thank you
for spending time with us today.
All right. Thanks. Take care.
Okay. So next, we'll see if we can get Ryan up on the floor.
Testing.
Yay! Hi, Ryan.
All right. I'm ready to rock.
We hear you. We don't see
Okay,
you now.
there we are.
You.
Okay, great.
Take it away.
Okay, well, that was a great, I think, lead in to a lot of the similar thoughts that I have right now. Is that I'm going to talk a little bit about what we've done at the Bailey Company and what we are doing at Cumberland Kayak, my 2 businesses. But a lot of it really does center around shared values as well, and trying to find those in our employees and in our customers and in our suppliers. So it's around that, and I guess just believing in people that they will, that ultimately most people want to do, have a good impact on the earth and on each other. And so trying to encourage and foster that and tap into that is always important. So kind of like Patagonia, the Bailey Company was formed in 1949 by my grandfather. So we're a third generation family business. We did not, like Patagonia, we did not start out with any environmental objectives that I've ever heard of. I wasn't around at the time, so I have no idea. But we were a forklift industry. We're in the forklift industry. We're not a very people don't view us as a green industry. We're not a very sexy industry. So it is a bit of a shock. I think by the time you hit second generation, my dad and my aunt were both a little more, they obviously, my dad raised me. So, there was a lot of nature growing up and talking about that, how we could impact the world. So as we've hit the third generation, it's become more of a focus. So the Bailey Company, in about 2010, we started really focusing on environmental efforts. And that has kind of grown. On Cumberland Kayak side, like Vincent was saying, I had the same opinion. It's a lot easier if you just start out embedding your environmental objectives into the core of the organization. So I was able to do that with Cumberland Kayak from the start, but with the Bailey Company, it was a bit of a culture shift. And we started out at the Bailey Company converting all of our lights to LED. We did that. We saw, pretty immediately about a 30-40% reduction in our electricity consumption, which was great. Our service managers started to see a reduction in their bills, which was appreciated by everyone. And then we started doing solar panel projects on the roof of our buildings. And we've done 8 of our 12 facilities at this point in time, our 8 largest facilities. And at those branches, we have offset, all of our electricity consumption as well. So that has been a really great objective. That kind of started the conversation for us. And we started out again from there. We pushed into recycling, increasing our recycling methods and how much of our waste we were recycling. And then about 2 years ago, we started really pushing towards zero waste. When we learned about that concept, we decided to go all in. Essentially, we pulled the trash cans from our facilities. We actually do not have dumpsters at most of our facilities. We have a couple that we're still converting over, but we've removed the trash cans. We organize recycling and compost. Right outside our office, my office here, we have it's like a 16 box cabinet where you can put all these different small waste streams. So we try to break everything down and recycle it or compost it or reuse it. And that was a shock to the system, I think, at first for our employees, but for our managers, we were able to weave their zero waste goals into our bonus plans, so into their compensation. That made a big difference. And we listened to our mechanics who had a lot of great ideas and were able to help us in our shift into zero waste and into environmental sustainability. For example, one of our mechanics, we had an issue with, we couldn't recycle our used oil bottles. As a forklift dealership, we have a lot of used oil bottles. We couldn't recycle them because of the residue in the plastic bottle. So one of our mechanics was able to create a draining apparatus where we could line up all the bottles, the oil would drain out. We could then recycle the bottles. So the recycling company, there are 12 of them for us, but they now take those bottles, and we're able to take that used oil that we drained and put that into our heaters at the shop and actually heat the shop so our mechanics have a warmer place to work in the wintertime. So that's kind of a perfect example of tapping into our employees' resourcefulness and ingenuity. Everybody felt like they had buy-in there. It made our mechanics warmer in the shop. It was kind of a win all around. So we've tried to do as many of those kind of initiatives and projects and encourage that back and forth discussion to make it so that everybody's fully on board. But then earlier this year, we were designated as the first certified company in Tennessee as zero waste. So that was that's something we're really proud of. As a company that's been around since 1949, and in the material handling business, you think about zero waste, you think about maybe a coffee shop, some company that's like Patagonia that is, at the forefront of it on a national or global scale of environment. But for it to be a material handling company, that's special to us, and I think also special to our employees and to their children and the people that they come into contact with. So, we've, as a thank you, we've redone our break room for mechanics and things like that to make sure that everybody feels like, hey, this is a better world for all of us at the Bailey Company. I'm going to touch on a couple other things. I'm not sure where I am on time. So we also created a nonprofit donation and equipment giving program. And I think, as a more, conservative industry, and everybody's very rigid on what they think a conservative likes or liberal likes. We found there are a lot of common threads. So, everybody likes parks. We're able to invest in 10 Green Land Conservancy, which is creating more park space and biological corridor space, preserving those special places in our state. And Turnip Green Creative Reuse, which is recycling materials, so in line with our zero waste mission, but also working in the schools and kind of wrapping into the community. And then, we're also donating equipment to food banks in organizations like that. So we're really able to tap into most of the issues that people care about and take away that kind of political element that I think makes some people nervous about sustainability or the environment. If I still have any time, Cumberland Kayak has also, we have from the very beginning, since 2015, when we started Cumberland Kayak, the idea was to bring healthy recreation to Nashville and to rehabilitate the image of the river. This is a city that lost complete track of the river. I grew up in Nashville. I never saw the river. We would drive right over it. We just didn't talk about it. No one went out there on boats that I'm aware of. Probably somebody did. So we're very focused on showing that natural side of the city that's right here to tourists, to residents. There are blue herons and turtles and beavers swimming right off of Broadway in downtown Nashville, which a lot of people don't realize even still. So we do river cleanups all the time with Cumberland River Compact and Turnip Green Creative Reuse. And we also donate, we started out donating 1% of sales to Cumberland River Compact early on. And now we're up to 4% of sales. It was something that we felt like we could still do more. And we were comfortable with that, the way that it was, the percentage it was taken out. And so we now donate 2% of sales to environmental nonprofits and 2% of sales to social justice nonprofits in the community. And we tell all of our kayakers all about that, and we make sure that they know that they are playing a role in a prettier Nashville, but also a healthier, more sustainable, environmental sustainable Nashville. So we're really proud of the way we try to weave it into our customers, our vendors, our suppliers, and our coworkers and our employees. We truly try to make it play a role in the global, just the whole picture of our businesses. Do I have more time? I think that's probably a good rundown.
You actually ended right on time. Thank you. Okay, so question for you is, 1 second. So when you have to choose between profit and social or environmental mission, how do you make those decisions?
I think that's a tough, I don't think that's it doesn't really come that regularly where it's like, we got to destroy the earth or, make some money. We found that for the most part, all of our initiatives are resulting in more sales. It's a great marketing sales tactic for us. Mentioning that, we're able to brand our bands and that kind of thing, zero waste. On the kayak cleanup side, on the kayak company side, we made it very clear from the beginning we were not going to pursue any kind of activity that was not in line with our objectives. I think on the forklift side, we're obviously supplying some very big accounts, so it's a little more difficult. I don't think, we take the stance. I mean, it's not on us to say, hey, every single company has to be an environmental company. We're not going to provide a forklift to them. I think what we are able to do, though, is when we are speaking with a customer, we're able to tell them about our zero waste initiative, offer them a tour of our facility, and try to tell them, I guess, that, hey, you can be a material handling forklift company and still be zero waste or still have solar panels. And really, we're trying to educate folks as well, I guess.
So we have a question about composting, and congratulations on the zero waste accomplishment. How do you implement composting? Do you have a vendor that picks it up, or do you use it for your business landscaping, personal use? How does all that work?
Yeah, so it depends on our branch. So, in Nashville, we use the Compost Company, which is a great local composting company. They pick up at every branch, or they pick up once or twice a week, depending on what you'd like. And we have very big, I think it's like a 65-gallon bin for that. So that's been really easy in the summer. If it's kind of starting to smell or there are a few fruit flies or something, we'll just up it to 2 times a week. At other branches, we have a couple of branches like Cookeville, Tennessee. I think one of our mechanics is a farmer, and they take the compost to their farm. And then we're trying a Zera food recycler also in Nashville, which supposedly will take your food and recycle it in 24 hours in a garden soil. And so we're going to try a raised bed or something like that in Nashville as well.
Great. Okay, we just have one more question. Actually, it's kind of a combination of 2 questions. So can you speak more a little bit about sustainability beyond environmental stewardship? And maybe connect that to how do you use these values in hiring and tips on creating an inclusive environment within the company culture?
Sure. Well, I think like I was saying, I think the environment, we really try to boil the environment sustainability down to parks and recreation and living healthier, and education in schools. And so I think we definitely try to make sure that our environmental efforts are being looped into our nonprofit efforts, and that everybody feels like they have a role. It's not something that it's just, executive leadership is going to push this down. It's something that everybody has a say in, everybody has a role in, and, trying to do some, words of affirmation and talk to other folks and say, hey, we really appreciate you doing that. Or, and trying to encourage folks. I guess it should be a positive movement for us. And I think in hiring, I think if that was the question, we're a woman-owned business. So that is something that, I think for mechanics, most mechanics are male. That's just been our experience. So, I think that's something that is trying to, it'd be great to find more female mechanics or female sales reps. We've definitely tried to lean into the woman-owned business side as much as we can, and we would love to continue to grow in that side. I did the Peace Corps in Costa Rica, so I speak Spanish, and we've recently created a Spanish website. That's something we really want to evolve. We've been here since 1949. Nashville has changed a lot. We'll continue to change, and we definitely want to change with it. And whoever is in our community is who we want to work with and be with, and if that makes any sense.
Great. Thank you so much, Ryan. I'm sorry about the technical difficulties. Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So I think now we will be able to have our last speaker, Farrell Calabrese. Is she able to join us? Yay! Hi, Farrell.
Hey guys, we got it sorted out.
Thank you for your patience. This is great. I'm so glad it worked out for you to join.
Yeah, me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Giving you an introduction already, so I'll just let you take the floor.
Wonderful. Well, sorry everyone for the tech issues, and thanks for hanging in. I'm gonna be honest, it's a little weird to watch myself talk. So anyway, everyone's having a great day. Just wanted to introduce myself quickly. Farrell Calabrese. I got a great intro, but I've been with Eastman for 12 years. And my career's kind of zigged and zagged. I have a background in leadership, design, strategy, communications, and all of that's really come together as I've joined the sustainability team. So I've been on the sustainability team for the corporation for just over 2 years. We work horizontally across the company, really trying to embed sustainability practices across our businesses, and then obviously with our CSR teams. So we have multiple functions. We're a big company. We have 14,000 employees. So we work cross-functionally across all of our operations and within our communities to just make sure that we're doing a really good job. I also lead the sub-council for the people in society that reports into our corporate sustainability council made up of executive team membership. And I'm really proud and excited of the work we're doing there. So just wanted to kick off a little bit and introduce you to who Eastman is. I don't know if everybody knows who Eastman is. We're a very large company up in Northeast Tennessee. So we're right on the border between North Carolina and Virginia in Kingsport. And we employ about 14,000 employees globally. So we're a multinational company. We're a Fortune, I think, still 150 company. Don't quote me on that. And we're a specialty materials company. We are also known as a chemical company. And when I think about chemical company and having a B Corp group invite me here, I was really excited because I think there's just a lot of potential to talk through materials and what everything is made out of. When I joined Eastman, I had a communications and branding background and worked in higher education. And I had to really reframe how I thought of Eastman too. And when I think about chemical company, I have to think about chemistry. And chemistry to me is a really creative field. It's where you're making stuff, you're solving problems, and that's really what we're doing at Eastman. Just trying to make sure I fit everything in 10 minutes, so apologize for looking at my notes. But yeah, so we bring innovative products to the market globally. We manufacture plastics, additives, things that people use every day. I'm sure as you look around your house, there are Eastman products everywhere. So just really excited about that. And innovation is true and core to who we are. And so being on the sustainability team, we really shape our strategy around what the world's experiencing and really trying to look outside so that we can create innovations that the world needs. So some of the lenses that we use are the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And I was wondering if there was a, raise hands feature or whatever. So if you're in the chat, if you know what that is, give a thumbs up or something. But the Sustainable Development Goals, if you don't know, and I'm going to read it so I don't get it wrong, but they were adopted in 2015 as a universal action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure people, peace, and prosperity by 2030. So there are tons of impact goals under the 17 main goals, and we really try to align our overall thinking and strategy with the direction of the UN SDGs. We don't intentionally maybe impact all of them. There's a lot of work. I think we touch on all of them, but we are trying to be intentional with which ones we're choosing to act upon. Another thing that we do is we really try and understand the global macro trends that we are experiencing. I would say 2020 is definitely a year of, I don't know, I think I should just leave it at hashtag 2020, but we have so many things that we've experienced this year, whether it's the social unrest in our country, COVID, before that, there were trade wars, just all sorts of things. These are the dynamics that play into Eastman's businesses. And as we look to shape our strategy for this upcoming decade of change, we're really excited because we believe that focusing on mitigating climate change, reducing pollution and waste, and really serving and supporting underrepresented communities will be pillars for us going forward. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that as that's really what's driving us and driving change for the corporation. And I really think that as if we want so we look to the future. In 2030, there's going to be 10 billion people on Earth. And how do we serve a thriving community by then? And how do we look at that through our lens? And so some of the things I talked about, so mitigating climate change, we're really looking at our environmental footprint. We're looking at the resources we use. We're rethinking how we make products because we want to be able to address things and also mitigate climate change so that we reduce our footprint and enable our customers to serve better products. We're also addressing the plastic waste issue, and this is going to get like a little technical, but the way that I would describe that is I think everyone generally could agree that there is a lot of plastic waste out there. We are a manufacturer of plastic, but we typically produce plastics that are more in the durable goods market. So if you think about your Camelback or Nalgene water bottle, that's a great example. What we're trying to do is really take waste plastics and put them through a process that we only have 10 minutes, so I won't get too far into the weeds on that, but really kind of put them through a process where we can unzip and rezip that chemistry. So we're taking waste plastics, single-use plastics that are out there that are being landfilled and incinerated today. We do not want to interrupt the mechanical recycling process, but we're taking those, putting them in our stream and using them as feedstocks to create new products. So really creating value for upcycling plastic, if you want to think about it that way. And we're really, really proud about that. That's launched in the last year. We have 2 different recycling technologies, and that is just something that we think will be pivotal for the company. And then, personally, I am all about a thriving society and holistically in all aspects. And building an inclusive, diverse, and just future for 10 billion people on Earth in the next 10 years is absolutely part of our strategy. As you know, that we talked about the UN SDGs, that's part of it. And as I work on work and lead our people and society team at work, it's a cross-functional team that's really looking at all the different facets of how Eastman can impact that. So whether it's the communities that we sit in, our employee engagement programs, again, our sustainability and how our businesses are thinking about social and environmental practices within our business strategies, and then all the way up to the top through our corporate strategy. So we're really excited about that. We're also welcoming a new member. We've got 1 minute left. Paula. So while I sit on the sustainability team, we do have someone that's going to work more directly with the state of Tennessee and the communities that we serve. And she is en route from Texas currently. So excited for all of you to get to know Paula when she gets here as well. And I think that we just, for me, the main takeaway is, we have corporate values and we all have to work together towards these things. And so I think when we think about the 3 largest things that the world needs right now, it's really lining up with the Paris Accord, it's reducing pollution and waste, and it's really, fighting for social justice in all capacities. So with that, I will end it, Emily.
Thank you, Farrell. Wonderful. I'm so glad you were able to make it. That was so deep and hit so many things, and just a really great. Maybe this is the better order to do anyway, because everything just sort of built on the next speaker. So a question that someone had was, what is one thing that a lot of people talk about in corporate social responsibility, but nobody's really figured out how to do very well?
It's a great question. And I've been thinking a lot about these types of things, clearly. And I almost want to flip that question around. I want to spotlight the companies that I think are doing great. And I think I wasn't able to listen to all the speakers because I was figuring out my tech, but I heard a lot about purpose and values. And I think the companies that are really doing a great job truly know who they are, what they stand for, and they are reaching the people, their tribes, if you will, that have those same belief systems and values. And so, I think Patagonia's already spoken. Patagonia obviously is like the poster child of all brands, but VF Corporation is also doing an amazing job. Little competitor to Patagonia, but they own a slew of brands, including Vans, the North Face, Carhartt, Timberland. And so they're a parent company of those, but they're doing amazing things. Unilever from the fast moving consumer goods sector, I really just raised them up. They are doing tremendous work, especially with, they've been highly regarded with their work on the SDGs. I had one more I was thinking about, but I think again, it's just, what's your vision for the future? How are you living that out in your own corporation? So you really have to walk the walk, walk that talk. And then I think you have to enable others to act, right? Ben and Jerry's, when I think about people that are living their brands, they're living their purpose, but then they're bringing their customers, their consumers, their value chains, their whole community in to live those same values. Those are the brands that I think are doing really, really well.
So we have another question. How are vendors in Eastman supply chain assessed on CSR? And is there a marketplace or an online community like the B Corp directory that's used to shortlist vendors?
So we have a very robust global supply chain, as you can imagine, being a multinational company. We have a leadership team that's around the sustainable supply chain. We actively look at that as part of our practices. And we are growing in that area with our industries. We serve multiple markets, whether it's the automotive market, the architectural market, fast moving consumer goods, architectural paint. There's so many places that we play, and the technologies that we bring to market are so varied as well. So sometimes we might make up 10% of what a final product is. So we tend to be the most upstream in the value chain. If you think about the supply chain that way, we are the raw material manufacturer. So then we really work more kind of on the downstream, all the way down to the consumer to really pull through our materials. And we hold ourselves accountable. We're really looking to make sure that our growth portfolio holistically is sustainably advantaged, or we take a leader position. And if we don't, we have an internal sustainability assessment that our team conducts for every product that we're launching commercially. And so if we don't meet those standards, then we really question why we're launching those.
Great. Okay. And just a last question. Maybe this is a little more oriented towards smaller companies that are trying to develop these practices of tracking environmental impact within their supply chains. What suggestions or advice would you have for a smaller company trying to do?
Just start. And it's messy and it's not going to be perfect. But everyone is learning. I mean, everyone is trying to figure out how to green the supply chain. Pick one product that you have, or one material of the one product that you have, and do awesome at that. And when you're awesome at that, pick another one and just keep going, and hold your supply chain accountable. I think the accountability factor throughout the supply chain is what's going to make this all work. So know where you can make the greatest impact and tackle it.
Prioritize. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been
it's been a joy. Thank you guys for having me. I wish we were all together.
I know. Technology is great till it's not, but we've managed to kind of work through and hear from everyone. So what I'd like to do now, thank you so much again, Farrell.
Absolutely.
I'd like to turn the floor back over to Bruce, who I think is going to move us into the last bit of the event where we have some time to do a little more networking, maybe make a few more connections. So I will sign off and wait for Bruce there he is. Hi, Bruce.
Hey, thank you, Emily. That flew by. That was fantastic. Apologies that we could not address all of the questions. We wanted to remain on track. And of course, we're still a few minutes late. But on behalf of B Tennessee, I would like to thank all of the attendees for joining us. I hope that this was both insightful and inspirational. And from rural to metropolitan locations and from industries as diverse as faith-based to apparel to industrial and manufacturing and materials, each speaker has shown that you can do good in any industry and at any place. So a big thank you goes to all the speakers for sharing their stories about how they're working to advance our communities, our region, our country, and ultimately our world in a better direction. And again, big thanks to Lunchpool for hosting and sponsoring this event. I think you've got at least 58 now happy users. In the meantime, be on the lookout for more Be Tennessee events. There's definitely more where this came from. So now we're going to cap off this event with a final networking session. Hopefully you can connect with some new faces, or if your conversation was cut off during the first networking session like mine was, then now's your time to pick up where you left off. So thank you again and hope to see you soon.